Good evening and welcome to The Square. Tonight's conversation is the 20th edition of our Burning Issues edition, and here we're going to talk about topics that you, the public, have put forward to The Square resident panelists. So some of the key things we're going to discuss today are vaccine apartheid, as well as traffic safety, and as well as reopening the economy. These are some of the topics we're going to fit into the 1 hour we have today. And joining me, as usual, the resident panelists of The Square. I'll start with you, Charles Haber, looking lovely in green. Great to have you on The Square.
It feels like we've swapped colors.
I know.
Dan, how are you?
Good, good.
Good.
Brandon Amata, great to have you on The Square, as always.
Thank you, Dan.
So, yeah, we're not going to have any midweek highlights. We're just going to dig in straight to the show. My name is Dan MPC, host of The Square. So the first thing that we're going to discuss is vaccine apartheid. So a chorus of activists have been calling for this global disparity on the vaccine manufacturing, and the term of vaccine apartheid is something that has been coined by activists looking at the disparity in manufacturing of COVID-19 vaccines. Of course, some of the challenges that they're putting forward the intellectual property laws in hoping for countries to be able to boost COVID-19 vaccine manufacturing globally. As things stand, affluent countries accounting for 18% of the world's population have bought 4.6 billion doses, 60% of confirmed orders. About 780 million vaccines have been administered to date, but less than 1% of the population of sub-Saharan Africa have been injected. So to address this issue, that's the first topic we're going to kick off, and I'll start off with you, Barna. What do you think needs to be done, especially on the African continent, in dealing with this vaccine apartheid issue?
I don't know.
I know you have a couple of opinions on the topic.
Yeah. I don't know, because for a very long time in Africa, we keep talking about things and doing nothing about them. We've talked about the need to invest in research and development. We don't do anything like that. And even for diseases that have been around for some time, we still haven't invested in coming up with a vaccine. And the challenge is always around, of course, intellectual property. I'll give an example of malaria. Just last week, again, we are relying on researchers from Oxford. But with COVID, first of all, we need to be grateful that it is a global problem. Yeah.
If it wasn't?
Yes, it's a global problem, especially in the West. So we have the vaccine in less than, 2 years. We have this, I don't want to call them African diseases, but we know that we still have many diseases where we don't have vaccines, So because it is a global problem affecting the West, so we see progress. And I think I saw today morning Pfizer is working around a pill, just one pill, and you'll be able to deal with COVID. So coming back to our continent, I feel that until we walk the talk around research and development, until we walk the talk around investing in science and technology, it doesn't matter what we say, there's been a lot of discussion around patent rights, and it's a difficult one because at the WTO the discussion is again the West, which hosts these big biotech companies, are saying if we give away patents, then what happens to these multinationals that we are hosting, So on one hand, you want to understand them, but then on the other hand, you say, where's the humanity in this, So it's a difficult one when it comes to Africa, because I feel we've had, endless conferences about Africa's potential, but for some reason that potential never comes to, Yeah, so I feel that until we really perhaps stop talking and actually just work and try to solve our problems, we'll keep having many forums where we go and cry, you know. But something has changed. If you look at over the last 1 year, at the beginning of the pandemic, there wasn't so much talk about the continent coming up with production plans. We've seen that in the last at least 6 months, there's been a discussion, and it's quite advanced in terms of what can we do as a continent. The Africa CDC is leading this effort, and the AU. And so we are optimistic that if everything goes according to plan, I think we may have some production out of South Africa. South Africa, I think Egypt, South Africa, Egypt, yes. And I think also Morocco. So, and again, we are seeing that right now, we are sure that it will take longer to get second doses because India has a problem,
Exactly.
which we were relying on. It's quite unfortunate what is happening in India, and even if we are seeing that the West is beginning to be human about it, it is a bit too late. You know, you can't hold vaccines till you have millions dying, really. And then suddenly you say, oh, we are being human about this, so we'll donate. I think it's quite unfortunate. So we have learned that global solidarity, of course, has failed, and it is not there. So until we look internally and invest in that capacity, of course, it takes time. It takes time, and also it is difficult because already the patents are everywhere. You know, so you're coming in late. You have to be very innovative how you break, you know, the value chain. So it's a difficult one, but at least there's hope since we've seen the discussions now are advanced in terms of what can we do. But again, we still have the problem at the WTO, the rights for production. We also know that I think so far the only trials that African countries were involved in were for AstraZeneca. So even when we still have, you know, many vaccine candidates, the options for African countries actually are still limited. So it's unfortunate, but that's the reality. Now we are waiting to see if Uncle Ben has released some. So hopefully that will help India stabilize in the next couple of weeks, and maybe we can again see exports. Until that happens, I hope we are taking the lessons. It's been quite unfortunate that, you know, we have had to get to this, but hopefully we are taking the lessons finally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really like how you say, you know, in Africa, it's enough talking, you know. Let's just put these words into action. I followed the vaccine manufacturing conversation. I think that happened, I think 2 weeks ago with various heads of state and people from the private sector and whatnot. And I really hope these discussions will bear fruit in terms of tangible, you know, tangible actions. Charles, over to you.
Yeah, I prefer not to talk too much about Africa and how we will tackle the COVID vaccine manufacturing program, because even countries that have done extremely well on that front, and brings me to my second point, India, are struggling. So I think it's not the best of examples to give. Even countries like the UK are undergoing very strict lockdowns. The US has had records, deaths and what have you, and cases, even though they own vaccines. So I want to move away from that sentimental attraction towards Africa producing a vaccine and go to realities on the ground. And it's India. Now, before the huge problem that they have now, and it's very, very painful. I was following BBC this morning, and they're talking about 1 death every 4 minutes
in India?
in Delhi.
In Delhi.
In Delhi alone.
It's really tragic.
It's extremely tragic.
Yeah.
It's also extremely painful that they're the world's largest, one of probably the world's largest manufacturer of pharmaceuticals. The drugs that we take in Africa predominantly come from India. They gave us kits, Rwanda. They gave Rwanda kits. They gave Rwanda vaccines. They've done so much in the fight against COVID. But how ironic is that?
That they're not able to deal with the COVID now in their country.
Yes, that COVID hits the world's best supporter of COVID.
COVID vaccines.
Yes. Yeah. No, and medication.
And medication, yes.
And kits.
Yes.
And so on and so forth.
Yes.
But of course, there are very valid points around numbers. You know, there are billions of people. There are things that Indians cannot manage. I don't know how you social distance in India. I don't know how you control crowds in India. It's then they also have their own cultural rituals. You know, there's so many things that the festivals, their funerals, their beliefs. There's so many things that are sort of anti-COVID. So they're dealing with so many other problems that are beyond the pandemic itself. But I want to talk about global unfairness. It's something Bana referred to about global solidarity. Now, if that problem had happened, if the problem that India is going through, the scourge that they're going through had happened in another highly populated country in Africa like Nigeria, I'm not too sure the reaction would have been the same. Mm. So to me, this is the best example of double standards. But so that's the second point I wanted to make. Really, that double standards one, but also that even if you're the best at fighting, you can also be beaten. But I also want to talk about global hoarding and the business around COVID. And this one country to give the best example that comes into my mind is Canada. So Canada did go shopping for vaccines, and because they had a lot of money, they bought the vaccines in their millions, and they've been trading the vaccines. Now, global health equity, if such a phrase exists, is anti-such practices. But he who plays the piper plays the tune. I think that's the saying that they put it, and as they put it, it's extremely unfortunate. But are we going to change that overnight? Most likely not. Now, does it also help that people have refused to take the vaccine, especially around our region, around the East African region? People have gotten COVID. A few have died. Many more have survived, and thereby earning herd immunity. Does that still create a good case for COVID vaccines? Probably not. I've been following a story doing its trots around the globe around vaccine passports, and the criteria is to get a vaccine passport, or to be allowed to fly, you have to have a vaccine passport, and people who are considered in that category include, number one, those who have gotten the 2 jabs, number 2, those who have fallen sick and recovered from COVID. And I've also read some medical reports that somebody who has gotten COVID and recovered from it is much better off than somebody who has gotten the jabs. So and then you ask yourself, do I really need to take a vaccine?
It's an interesting question.
Yes.
It's an interesting question, playing devil's advocate. But
yeah,
it begs the question.
Yeah, it begs a very fundamental question. I did read doctors within the region, within the East African region, medical practitioners who have said no to the vaccine. Yes.
Brenna?
I wouldn't go that far. Of course, first of all, science is not static. So
it evolves as well.
Yes,
I mean, it keeps on moving,
you know,
and the pandemic keeps on changing. You know, the variants. And
yeah. So to the extent that what we have seen over the last couple of months, over 12 months, that the scientific evidence is changing, and that is what is guiding the advice, I think we have to stick to that, where the evidence is. But for India, I think it's more than that. We know that before the current crisis, there were political rallies in India, you know, and we also know that there were religious ceremonies going on. So I don't think that we can entirely say this would have just happened. I think they could have handled it differently. I think it's a political problem, actually, in terms of why we have the current crisis. It is a leadership problem. Let's not massage it. It's a leadership problem. Because in the same country, actually, we have regions that have cricket, your favorite sport, you know. Cricket is going on. Some people are dying, and there's cricket going on in some parts of India. So it's a bigger problem. But again, I just wanted to touch a bit the hypocrisy around this whole vaccine nationalism, and you know, because we've seen under COVAX, the West will say we are doing our best, we are helping, you know, we are donating $1 billion to COVAX, but under the same, you know, under the same vehicle, you have them ordering, you know, so they've already bought the doses, but they're still saying, oh, we are donating, you know. So again, it goes back to self-sufficiency. You know, you're not going to stop the Canadian government from doing what it has to do to protect its citizens. Yeah. The thing is, what are you doing, you know, about it?
I'm totally with you on that.
And we cannot, of course, and I'm glad that we are seeing the leadership saying this. We are not asking for favors. It's not. We expect that if you're going to help, you do it because you understand that this is a problem that cannot be solved by you just vaccinating your country. You know, because we've seen again the tone changing, for instance, from the U.S. The U.S. realized that even, I think today or yesterday, the CDC, the Center for Disease Control in the U.S., has told Americans that if you're vaccinated, you can go out and interact without masks. Now, that's a huge, huge statement, yeah. But again, Americans cannot operate in isolation. So even if they feel confident that they have vaccinated a larger part of their population, they still need to interact with the rest of the world. So as long as the rest of the world remains closed, if the borders remain closed, then America will also suffer. So what we're seeing now is that America now is trying to help other parts of the world because, of course, we are interdependent.
It's codependent.
Yes. Yeah.
Charles, you want to say something?
Yes. I really wanted to say something about cricket. Of course, it's next to impossible for cricket to be dropped, and I don't comment. Two things. I think it is irresponsible of the Indian government to allow the IPL, the Indian Premier League, to go on when there is a pandemic. Now, this is what is happening, for your own information. So the IPL is arguably the most lucrative sporting competition in the world by season. Countries like Australia have told their players, you players who are playing in the Indian Premier League, when you come back home, don't expect to be treated by any kid gloves. Some other international players, South Africans, English players, even Indian players themselves, because this is a tournament that brings up together the best players in the world together for about 40 days or so. Some of the icon players have said, no, we don't want to be part of this mess, and have gone back to their respective homes. So to that extent, I think it's responsible of the Indian government. But that said, I have taken a personal a decision to stop watching the IPL.
In protest.
Yes, in protest.
So great points on this, Brenna. Decisions need to be taken. People, the continent as a whole needs to start acting. We're having the conversation, which is great, but we need to really push into action vaccine manufacturing on the continent. Charles, interesting question.
Yes.
All this hullabaloo about vaccine apartheid. Do we really need it? Looking at some of the
Our neighbors
factors
are blasting away.
some of the factors you mentioned.
Yes.
Yeah, but one also
That's
wonders.
misleading.
I don't know, but Charles, also one wonders. Just imagine an entire country. I mean, like if people got infected on a large scale, the havoc it would wreak.
Again,
If but these are scenarios that I'm sure people.
Yeah, and this is life and death, so
Exactly.
you can't just.
Yeah, but
I'm
anyway,
guessing.
interesting questions and answers there. The next point I want us to just touch on is reopening the economy. And in this, we're going to look at certain sectors that have been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. It's been a year since COVID hit the world and Rwanda at large. So far, based on the latest numbers, we've had 24,677 cases of COVID infections, 23,005 recovered cases, 1,294,444 tests done, 349, 702 vaccinated, 330 deaths, and 6 in critical conditions. So gradually, Rwanda has been, reopening key sectors of the economy, although those in the entertainment as well as, events business remain closed. So my question to you, due to the COVID-19 restrictions is, we're still balancing a fine line between public health and, completely reopening the economy. What's your take on this? How can we best continue navigating on this? Charles, I'll kick off with you.
I think it's a dilemma, and I don't want to be in RBC's position or
any policy
or anyone in the
leader,
policy space.
exactly.
It's a very tough decision to make. But that said, I'll probably pick sector by sector, and one that I'm extremely passionate about being entertainment. I think it's extremely unfair to say close bars, close entertainment, when you have a very scientific way of knowing that the virus spreads through enclosed spaces, or the way they tell us when you're not social distancing, when you're not wearing masks. Now we're beginning to see that you don't necessarily have to wear a mask if you're either vaccinated or you've cured from the disease. So we're demystifying this whole mask thing. So I think the very robotic way of looking at the entertainment sector has to be loosened. And I'll give a few other examples. So I don't know of any open air churches that are allowed. Yes, we restrict the numbers of people going into churches, but we allow places of worship to work. Same applies to restaurants and so on and so forth. Now, you will argue that we have COVID police, that, and by and large, any establishment that is worth of its name will have people in reflective jackets moving around to make sure that people are social distancing and what have you, which is really fantastic. But the double standards is what I feel I have a very huge problem with. The day before yesterday, on Monday, yes, the day before yesterday was Monday, we had a cadet pass out in Gako. Now, I was not in Gako. I watched the function on TV.
I actually watched it, and some questions ran through my mind
Yeah.
in terms of COVID
Yeah.
restrictions and the crowd gathering and so forth and so on.
So I want to give the organizers of the event the benefit of doubt that all those parents and well-wishers of the guys who passed out on cadet were sitting 3 meters apart. If that is not the case, they should allow people to to socialize all around town. So the point I'm raising really is around double standards. And then, what about functions, weddings, gusawas, and so on and so forth? If maybe the argument is that it's an open air event, then allow entertainment that is in an open air area. If the argument is around social distancing, put in place COVID police to ensure there is social distancing and it's in an open air area, and so on and so forth. So the whole issue around allowing travel, allowing people to get onto motors, allowing certain functions to take place, but you don't allow events to take place, I have a huge problem with that.
And you're also calling for a bit of flexibility.
Absolutely.
You know, the pandemic has a
Yes.
changing face.
Yes.
The way we also approach it needs to, you know,
Yes.
have some flexibility. Werner?
It's a tough one. I wouldn't put it in black and white like Charlie is doing. But I feel that we must, I mean, it's 12 months plus, so everybody's tired and exhausted. But we can't afford to put our guard down. And we must not let emotions take over. Because we've seen, if you rush through to open up, it can as well backfire. We saw that during the Christmas break. Let's not forget that. And so you don't want to take 5 steps forward and then take 10 backwards. So I have confidence in the team that is making these decisions, and I think they are based on evidence. So I will continue to support that. I know that it is human nature. If you have a wedding, you really want to have your friends and family around you. But then again, if you catch COVID and we lose you, then it's a bigger problem. You know, that's difficult. And I think it's not as easy on government as probably as we think. Let's remember, enforcing guidelines costs money. So even if you're saying that you can allow gatherings, someone has to pay someone to enforce. So that costs money. Can we afford that? I don't know. Secondly, we may recall that a few months back, when they tried to reopen, they were insisting on COVID tests. That also became a problem because people were saying, "Oh, we can't afford. It's costly." So it's a difficult one. You know, you're walking a tightrope, and I maintain that we should be guided by the evidence. Really, we should be guided by the evidence, and we shouldn't feel that, because let us remember, I think it's just about 2% that is vaccinated, and so we don't have that luxury. Why are you seeing the opening happening? Most of them actually have achieved, I think, over 40% of vaccination. So if you're at 2%, I think we have to resist the temptation to think that we are done with COVID, because the huge risk is that, you know, you open up and then you're back to square one, and you don't want that to happen. So it's a delicate balance, and I feel that let us be patient and be guided by the evidence.
I want to make a comment around patience and being guided by evidence. You see, science doesn't lie, and I know for a fact that any event that is national in nature, so assume there's a conference by the Ministry of Finance talking about the economic recovery program, and it's at the Radisson Blu, I am 100% sure that there will be a requirement for a COVID test. If you're going to go to the Kivu Serena for Easter weekend, there will be a requirement to have a COVID test. So, and you have a negative test for that matter. So, and there's quite a few of other examples that we can give. I know for a fact, so I don't know for a, let me retract this. I would bet my money, even though I'm not too sure, that everybody who attended, for example, the cadet pass out was obliged to take a COVID test. So where am I going with this? Let's put in place mechanisms to awaken the economy like those. If it is extremely important to have CHOGM, and we are going to have a concert by Eminem, who's a British artist.
Of all names.
Yes, I mean, I'm not too sure.
Okay, now we know how old you are.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too sure. I mean,
but Eminem is
no, I think he's a British artist. He's a British rapper.
He's very American. Anyway, that's not the point, but yes.
Okay. I knowing what's the name of the other guy whose bias isn't mine? The old guy that Burna likes, the double-studded guy.
You can just say Burna Boy. It's fine.
No, Burna Boy is not. I'm trying to find
any British artist.
Yes, British artist that you can drop. So if we're going to have the CHOGM and we must have a British artist who is going to perform in an outdoor area, and we say everybody will have to be vaccinated and everybody will have to have a negative COVID certificate, so be it. So the point I'm raising is, let's put in place mechanisms to ensure we open these other sectors of the economy, especially those that have a huge multiplier effect.
I hear you.
Yes.
Let me respond to that.
Yes.
We must remember that when you do the test, it does not give you immunity from catching COVID. Doing the test does not in any way mean that you cannot catch COVID.
No, what I meant is that doing the test in addition to.
But if you're negative,
That's one.
you won't be able to attend.
In addition
it's just a test.
to the vaccine.
It's just a test. And even with the test, there's an error of there's a margin of error.
Yes.
Okay? Yes. So doing a test does not guarantee per se. It's just risk management. Secondly, even when you're vaccinated, the protection is not 100%. Okay? And it also doesn't mean that you will not catch COVID. It simply means that the likelihood of you dying is less. That's what vaccination essentially does. It does not say you cannot catch COVID. Yeah? So let us not really look at vaccination and testing as saying, oh, we are now good because we have testing capacity or we have people who are vaccinated. I don't think so.
But we also know... what Charles is saying, those two key factors should be able to ease up reopening some of these
yes, and to be fair...
They cannot remain static forever.
Of course. And we've seen the reopening happening.
Yes.
Yeah? But we have to also be aware of super spreaders. Yeah? Social gatherings are super spreaders. That is the evidence. And this is not just in Rwanda. It is a global problem. Yeah, so I think it would be, yes, you have to look at the effect on the economy, but you also must not lose sight of the fact that some of these social gatherings are super spreaders. And that, perhaps, is what is delaying the decision to open up. Because, think about it, you gave an example of an official event. Ideally, an official event will have a time, maybe 2 or 3 hours maximum, and it's done. Yeah. If it's a party, I mean, how are you going to control how long people stay in a particular place? It's difficult. If you're going to have someone enforce, that also costs money. So, I mean, I can understand.
What are you saying, basically?
What I'm saying is, let us not, be tempted to think that once we have the testing capacity, we have people who are vaccinated, we should be, opening up simply because of that. Yeah, I think we should continue to be guided by the evidence, and it does not mean that we will open tomorrow, but let's try and find a way around it. Now, I saw, for instance, the letter by the gym owners,
yes.
The frustration.
The appeal to...
Yes, For some reason, I think they had a meeting, but nothing, of course, happened. I don't know why. So some of the businesses really need, they need to be looked into and find a way around allowing maybe whether it's 2% capacity or, yeah, but I wouldn't go for massive
as
social
far as
gatherings.
concerts, as Charles said.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I think for
No,
gyms, it definitely needs to be looked into.
At this point.
Obviously, the example of a concert and what have you is a bit of a hyperbole. But I want to give an example, another example around entertainment again, or F&B, that is largely dependent on the area in which the function is taking place. Or and let's give a practical example of a location like Sundowner, for argument's sake, in Timihora, and then another one like, I know I might be shot in the head for thinking like this.
Nobody's going to shoot you,
like
don't worry.
Cadillac. One has 4 box walls, and that is the design of the business, that is the nature of the business. A gym is within an enclosed space, that's the nature of the business. A nightclub is within an enclosed place, that is the nature of the business. Regulations are around noise pollution and what have you, that's the nature of the business. The other one has a totally different nature of business. It cannot survive if it is not in open air. Their offering is totally different. Mm-hmm. So why wouldn't you allow people to have a silent disco by the poolside or by the beach? By definition, you're outside. And then maybe put in place regulations, and that's probably a better example to give than the gym guys. You can say, you'll only come here, 1, if you're vaccinated, 2, if you have your COVID results that have turned out negative, 3, if your own headsets are your own and you're not sharing anyone else, and 4, if we see you within 1 meter with somebody else, we throw you out and find the owner of the venue, and so on and so forth. But I think the bigger point is, let's be open to ingenuity and creativeness around, yes, okay, around the restrictions and around awakening the economy. Yes,
I hear you. Last topic that we want to also tackle is one that you viewers put forward in terms of, interesting things to discuss on the panel, is to do with traffic road safety. So Rwanda National Police introduced just recently speed governing cameras, cameras that detect speed, and this has been met with mixed reactions from the general public, mostly because the location or how these cameras are put up is hidden. In other countries you have a warning, cameras ahead, and it's very open to the public. So, drivers have also resorted to using apps that detect the speed detectors. And of course, as Rwanda National Police stated, this is not allowed. So my question to you, Charles and Berna, is how can Rwanda National Police best work with citizens in improving road safety for drivers, even pedestrians, when it comes to issues of speed and road safety? Charles, I'll kick off with you, or should I start with you, Berna? Charles, over to you.
That's very strong.
I know.
I don't know that that's because I drive faster than Berna, which is not exactly accurate. But I think the issue is beyond road and road safety, and it's largely around policing COVID. And I think when we sent out when you sent out the tangas about what we're talking about is around police. I think this is the worst time to be a policeman in Rwanda, or to be law enforcement in general, because frustrations are extremely high. People are not making money. People desperation levels have raised to alarming levels. People are losing it. So it's the worst time to be able to contain all those emotions. But I want to talk about 2 particular things, and one is that historically one of the areas in which the Rwandan National Police has scored very well is community policing.
Exactly.
Yes. Community policing is a very, very simple concept. Is where the community helps the police force to be able to do its job. And the way they do it is very simple, is that the police shows the community that we are partners in whatever we are doing. If you see a thief, call out that thief and then, you know, let's chase him together and so on and so forth. If I leave my laptop in my car and forgotten to put down my window, stand next to the window of my car and remind me at the end of and I'll tip you some, and so on and so forth. Now, in the event that the people feel that law enforcement is no longer partnering with them, then community policing is going to be in a bit of a jeopardy. Now, that said, when it comes to traffic police, I think they can work a lot smarter. You know, I am tempted to think that one of the reasons why why they have deployed a plethora of cameras across the city is because they are broke.
Surely you can't say that.
No, you see, revenues have dropped.
Do you think this is a revenue collection scheme?
I mean, we were here with the Minister of State for Finance a few weeks ago, and he told us how low the numbers had dwindled. We scrapped collection of property taxes because people had no money. Banks have given all sorts of waivers to their borrowers because businesses are not making money. So there is no one in the country who is not broke. This brokenness has not spared the national police. So they have to think out of the box.
And you think
on ways
is this a reason?
Which
and the way they're hidden, you think that's something
that
corresponds to what you're saying?
It's definitely a money collection scheme. It has nothing to do with safety, because if it had a lot to do with safety, they would have put cameras, they would have put road signs with the proper cameras to tell you beware, there's something ahead. But for you to hide a camera under a bush after a sharp corner, it means that is a trap. Yes.
Berna, what's your take on this issue before we go to our Twitter feed?
I mean, after Charles, I don't know what to think.
I mean, do you really think it's a trap? It's a revenue collection scheme?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so, and I think that we need to take a deep look at what Rwanda National Police is trying to do and Rwanda as a country, you know, because the two are intertwined. And I'll give an example. If you're happy with the progress that Rwanda has made in terms of containing COVID, you need to think about how that has been achieved. If you're happy that you live in an efficient state, you know, there are many things that work, the corruption is less, then we need to understand why it is that way. Now, so coming back to the cameras, I think we shouldn't just criticize policy simply because we are inconvenienced by that policy. We need to look at it and look at the merits and you know, why it doesn't work. So I feel that already Charles is biased, so he may not necessarily provide any useful conversation because he's paid so much money. I
have not yet. Yes, I know. But I'm just an exception. I'm cautious. I don't drive as fast as Diana and you combined, but not that I will not get into I'll not fall into a trap because I don't know where the traps are laid. But for your information, I've not yet paid a fine.
Which is fine. Which is fine. But I think we shouldn't just focus on the sentiments. Policy is.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Driven,
don't criticize it just because we're being
yes, and
if you respect, just respect the rules. Drive safely, drive at, speeds that are allowed.
There's that.
You'll be in trouble.
There's that, but also...
But Charles also has a point in terms of the placement of the cameras and so forth and so on. It begs the question,
I think
the manner in which...
for me, I think the issue is around the awareness of how we came to the cameras and why they are there. For people to comply or to understand that it is in their interest.
And I know we had the spokesperson, CP Kavera, here on the square before, and this topic was to do with, road accidents. The numbers are staggering,
Yeah.
So really, it's in our best interest.
I mean, right now, it is very easy to forget what was happening 5 years ago in terms of traffic accidents and how we actually got to where we are. We may recall, and you might want to revisit the discussion, that even the head of state was forced to make a comment and give direction on the issue. So it is not coming out of the blue. And I wouldn't agree with you that, dismiss it as, oh, they're trying to make money or... No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Oh, please.
So
can we just go to...
I think what we need, I think what we need from the National Police is to explain what they are trying to achieve.
Better communication. Better
communication. Just to explain what they're trying to achieve. And
Dana, if
Charles,
I
just
may,
very quickly.
yes,
You're running out of time and also to social media feed.
I will vehemently disagree with Bernard because I think sometimes these things need to be backed by statistics. You can't wake up in the morning and deploy cameras in areas that are not known to be hotspots.
Exactly.
For crying out loud,
how do you know they're hotspots?
No.
Where's the evidence? Where's the evidence that they are not hotspots?
I will give you 3 roads that I use on a very regular basis, at least 6 times in a week, and I have never seen an accident with my own eyes or read about another on media, and all of a sudden there is a secret camera. If you look at the road from Utexirwa going up to Brioche before you connect to Gachoriro, I have never seen an accident on that road. If you look at
the one,
so do you want to see
the one next to MTN Center?
No. It is not.
Do you want to see it so that you're convinced?
His point is they're placed in areas.
Yes.
And it goes back to his point of this.
No. When you're driving a car, by definition or by default, they are what they call speed breakers. When you're approaching a corner, or when there are speed bumps, or when you're going a sharp hill down, or a sharp slope down, or a sharp hill up, or another activity that is distracting you, by default, every driver will slow down.
Can we just move on to our social media feed? First, I know you guys will go on to, you'll debate on this until the cows come home, as Charles likes saying. The first social media tweet we have right now comes from Dolapo. We can have it on our screens. And he says that with regards to our first topic for tonight, which was on vaccine apartheid, he says India mitigated COVID-19 during the first wave. It was glaring states that curtailed that first wave were seen as having firm leadership who weren't lax. India relapsed while some like you say, became firm. Super spreaders seem to be the new conduits for the new waves. And you're talking about super spreaders, crowd gatherings, for instance, Berna. We have another tweet coming in from Andrew Gatera, who says, thanks, Charles Habib, for hitting on the entertainment sector. When tourists test negative on arrival are allowed to travel around and hang out in their respective hotels freely. How about if we open up our gyms and dancing clubs only for those who have negative tests, 92 to 120 hours validity? Ben, I know you're going to agree with Andrew on that tweet. We have another tweet coming in from Dolapo. Sorry, it's no longer there, but we'll just go ahead. We have a tweet coming here from says that with regards to Canada and other countries who purchased more than enough COVID-19 vaccines, someone posited the countries can hoard for humanitarian purposes when it pertains to the collective health of the citizenry. We have a few more tweets coming up that I'd also like us to look at. But in the meantime, Bernard, Charles, would you like to just quickly comment on what has been said so far?
I'm not too sure I understood what Dolapo said around hoarding for future purposes. I think he's trying to justify it, and I think that it's a bit inhumane.
Bernard, is there something you want to say?
I think we all appreciate
Yeah.
that the businesses in the hospitality sector really have struggled.
Yes.
Many have been forced out of business. Many continue to struggle. So they need help. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
And that's it's a difficult decision, but I think we have to leave it to the people who have been guiding us.
Yeah. Anyway, so we've come to the end of our show. I just want to hear closing remarks from both of you on these three topics that we've tackled tonight: vaccine and apartheid, reopening the economy. Charles, you stood firm in what you said, as well as run the National Police navigating better and communicating better with the public with issues like we saw, such as road safety. Charles, I'll start with you.
I'm particularly bothered around the interpretation of restaurants and eating before you drink, drinking before you eat, drinking as you eat, and so on and so forth. We have seen in the last few days excessive zealousness around even arresting people who are having a beverage after their meal as early as 6 p.m. Hours before the curfew time. I am hoping that overzealousness is not because there's a lot of money that is earned when people are arrested for flouting COVID guidelines.
Yes. Just a couple of more tweets I want us to quickly read before we close. We have a tweet saying COVID-19 prevention, if you can have that on our screens. COVID-19 prevention guidelines make no sense when you enter bus parks where even the 1 meter rule is not observed on the queue during rush hours. Yes. We have another tweet coming in that's, I don't know if we'll have time for you, Berna.
I don't think rush hour works in Rwanda.
Anyway, this tweet is asking, can Berna kindly ask Namata to clarify on how a hidden camera can prevent accidents. Berna, if you can quickly tackle that and in closing remarks.
Dana, allow me to make a comment around rush hour after that. Yes.
If time allows.
Yes, just rush hour.
I can quickly respond to that. Already, I think Rwanda Police has achieved what it wanted to achieve, which is awareness. Already, people are cautious. They don't want to pay. That is already safety. Yeah. That is already safety. Because this cautiousness, people are worried. They're saying, oh, there's a camera somewhere. Yeah. So that is safety.
They've done one element of it.
Yeah. Even with the apps. Yeah. By the time you install the app and you are on the wheel, you're definitely thinking about safety. Yeah.
Interesting. Charles,
my closing remark would be, it's been over 12 months. Some people remain unemployed. Some are losing jobs. It's a difficult decision. Many continue to struggle. We are not out of the woods yet. Yeah. So it's a delicate balance, but I hope that we will see progress towards fully reopening of the economy.
Charles, very quickly.
Yes, I would implore our police. They do a fantastic job. We expect them to do a little bit better. They are slowing down traffic. I did talk about rush hour. It takes easily, if you live in Masaka and you work in CBD, by 7 in the morning, you counter about 4 stops during rush hour. You have to drop your kids at school. You have to get to work. But along that way, you will encounter a minimum of 4 stops of a queue. A policeman checking whether you've paid your past traffic fines, another one checking if you're not overspeeding, another one checking if you do have control technique, and so on and so forth. And there's queues and queues building up during rush hour. How are we going to be productive, do the jobs that Bana wants us to do properly, when we are spending half of our mornings on unnecessary traffic queues? Very interesting. We've come to the end of the show. Thanks, as always, Charles and Brenna, for
interesting and great debate. Thank you very much to our viewers, especially those who've been, sending in their comments and suggestions and commentary on our social media feed. Please keep the conversation going using hashtag #TheSquareRW. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank our partners, Uzi Collection and Bourbon Coffee. Have a good night. See you again next week.